Not the Footy Show.
Now, before I ask each of these boys to whisper their secret, let me say that I know that long after I have retired and I look back on this show, the memory of this secret will always be one of the brightest ones in my whole entire time.
Oh, have we got secrets? I'll tell them now that much. Welcome to the Recruitment Whisperers, not the Footy Show. G'day everybody, welcome to episode 276 of Not the Footy Show. It's a new year, but it's the same old Robb, Cox and Warrick. Nicolson, unfortunately, you did not get the trade-ins that you so richly deserved after 275 episodes. Coxsmith, it's nice to have you back on board.
Yeah, I feel ripped off, mate. We didn't get the, the big surprise, the new hosts over Christmas or anything like that.
We're in deep discussions with at least 3 or 4 media organisations, but I wasn't willing to grow the hair out and get the mane going. So, unfortunately, we had to say no to all those places. It's episode 276, mate. It's Recruitment Whisperers season recap, or off-season recap, we'll call it. It's the episode 7 of that. We haven't spoken since just before the World Cup final. Australia, unsurprisingly, gave Samoa touching up in the decider. And what's happened since November is, well, quite frankly, a lot, because a lot of the big dominoes have fallen in terms of players who were coming off contract at the end of 2023, Coxsmith. Which of the signings, and there's a few of them, surprised you the most over the last month?
Well, none of the re-signings surprised me. Look, getting Bateman across the line, although he does have form for leaving clubs in the middle of the contract.
It's a long-term deal, 4 years. Come on, you'll see every single one of them.
He will not play in 2027. Well, not for the Tigers anyway. Look, I think Bateman is probably the big difference maker as well, as long as he brings the same energy to the Tigers as he brought to Canberra, as long as he's still got that drive and passion to do it, which can dissipate with age. But yeah, I think Bateman was mine. What about yours?
Dylan Brown, sticking with Para, probably surprised me that he did it that soon. I thought
he did that on that 18-year contract.
It's a classic long-term, short-term deal. So he signed an 8-year deal, apparently, that's only really through the end of 2025. So the player option he has is to 2031. And what I guess surprised me the most is that Parramatta just went, well, we'll give you lots of money now, and then you can pretty much say to us, well, stuff that contract, I want twice as much as of 2026. They've really just said, write your own check. And what surprised me more about that is it hasn't really given them long-term stability with him, and it's probably going to cost them Mitchell Moses. So,
look, I've got a little. I mean, I know we haven't really jumped into this podcast yet, but I've got a little bit of something that I want to get off my chest about Parramatta.
Go for it.
And I think they're playing the good game at the moment, but I hope they don't get sucked into a price war with Mitchell Moses. And I'll tell you why. I have been on this podcast in recent times, and I told you that I thought Mitchell Moses was, probably in the top 4 halfbacks in the comp.
Yeah, you had him number 2 last time we spoke.
Yeah, and I think I think it kind of, but the problem for Mitchell, and the thing that Parramatta got to remember is that if they didn't make the grand final last year, let's pretend for one moment they didn't, would they pay Mitchell Moses $1.3 million or for 1.4? No, they wouldn't. Now, just because they made the grand final, Parramatta got pumped in the grand final last year.
Yeah.
Mitchell Moses made no difference in a big game. Surprise, surprise. So why would you reward a grand final appearance when you got so convincingly beaten in that grand final by Penrith? I don't know what they've got coming up through their juniors, but before they get into a price war trying to hold on to Moses, who isn't getting any younger. I know he's not quite old yet.
I think he's 28, isn't he? Roughly.
He's 28, so he's probably got.
I'll double check that for you.
Quite literally, probably got 3 good years left in him. I don't know if he's Cooper
29 this year, so he'll be 28 at the start of the season.
I don't know if he's the Cooper Cronk style player that will really, really blossom in his last couple of years, and be great throughout his career. So, if I was Parramatta, I'd say, listen, we can afford call whatever number, 1 million, 1.1, and stop there. Don't get into a bidding war because it'll affect you going forward. It'd be nice to hold on to him for another 2 or 3 years if you can, but other than that, you got to know where to draw the line with him.
Yeah.
Dylan Brown is little bit of a different story, because Dylan's quite young. I think, like you just mentioned, I think when they signed Dylan Brown to that however many year contract it is, but it's really only 2.
Yeah.
It's probably given them a little bit of security, a little bit of hope that they can entice other players to go there to play with Dylan, if they need to use him as a pawn like that. But yeah, look, I like him. I like Parramatta holding on to Dylan Brown. I think it's good for them. I'm just not sure they need to get into a bidding war with any other clubs to try and hold on to Mitchell Moses.
Thing to remember is that Dylan Brown turns 23 this year. Moses turns 29 and Gutherson turns 29. So that gap between those 3 key players, it's significant. So that's why I was surprised that the deal didn't lock him in long term, so that they knew this is what he was going to be on further on. Mind you, we know how contracts work. If he wasn't happy after 2 years, he just would have settled on a new one. But yeah, it's just a fascinating situation with Parra. They've pretty much said you can have whatever you want. That said, I do rate him extremely highly, so I get it. That was Parramatta's big move. South Sydney, they brought back the half of the old people's home and Latrell Mitchell. So Cody Walker re-ups until the end of 2025. He's already turned 33. And Damien Cook re-up for another couple of years. He turns 32 this year. Latrell, on the other hand, turns 26. South have got so perilously close the last few years and just haven't been good enough right at the end. This last final series was the first one Latrell's actually been on the field in September. Are you happy with him re-upping for 4 years and pretty much saying that this could be my last contract? I didn't love that message that he sent out, if I'm a South man.
Yeah, Latrell's one of those guys, isn't he? He evokes emotions within people and opinions. Like I've said before, I think Latrell could do anything in football that he wanted to do if he really wanted to do it. I'm happy for South that he's re-signed. I don't think that they can. Look, I still don't think he's a fullback. I'm going to say that till I'm blue in the face. Don't think he's a fullback. But I think South Sydney need Latrell Mitchell to get to where they want to go. I'm not entirely sure they need a 33 or 34-year-old Cody Walker.
33 this year, Cody Walker.
Okay. I think they need to free up a little bit of, when I say free up, I mean give some opportunities to some younger guys that have been there for a little while, like guys like Blake Taff, who really wasn't
where does he
last
play?
year.
Where does he play now?
Look, I either see him as a 6 or a 1, but both of those positions have been taken up with the aforementioned Mitchell and Walker. So, I'm not too sure. He's not going to be a 7 if, what's his name?
Ilias.
What's his name? Ilias. If Ilias is there, and they don't need a 9. So Blake Taff may find himself on the market pretty soon if he wants to play regular first-grade football.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be good for him to leave because he should be playing for regular first-grade football from what I've seen of him. I don't think playing second fiddle in the early prime of your career is a very smart move. Look, I do like the fact that Mitchell's staying there, and I think it's good for South. What are your thoughts?
These moves, surprise isn't the word. I find it interesting that Souths were willing to spend big money on 32-year-old Damien Cook and 33-year-old Cody Walker when they weren't willing to spend that on Adam Reynolds 12 months ago.
Yeah, well.
Because, they got Peter Mamazoulis, I think, is the young hooker coming through. Taff was there either fullback or 5'8". They've got Ilias coming through. It's just an interesting message that it sort of sends, which was, we're going to get rid of our gun halfback and still try and win a comp. And then it's like, oh, no, we can't leave our 33-year-old 5'8" and 32-year-old hooker to leave again because we go wrong. I don't know. To me, it just seemed like, just why wouldn't you keep Reynolds? Surely you can cut corners elsewhere if you had to.
Yeah.
And have gone all out for it this last season, especially when you didn't have Mitchell for those two playoff campaigns, like beforehand. I don't know. I get it with South. They got to show that they're always going for the title. I think Russell Crowe's pretty adamant on that front. I don't think he's going to be happy with a rebuild. I know they did win one comp under his watch, but I'm sure he's pining for number 2. Mitchell, he'll get what he wants, and just for the sake of South, I hope he wants to play for those 4 years. That's my biggest takeaway from that.
Yeah. I hope he doesn't, change his mind, so to speak. He's still look, good luck to Souths. I like it when Souths are playing well. They're exciting to watch when they're all on song. They're an exciting team to watch. But I still think that they'd be better served playing Mitchell in the centres.
Taff fullback.
And maybe Taff or whoever else is around. There's certainly got other juniors around, but we'll see. What else we got?
Okay, so we'll go back to the Bateman one because I want to ask a question about that in a second. But there are 2 other signings that were of fair impact. Sam Walker re-signed with the Roosters for 2 more years, the end of 2025. Now, he signed a big deal, didn't he, to sign with the Roosters in the first place? So what's fascinating to me would be what he actually got to re-up with them. They're usually pretty smart with the way they work their salary cap there at Bondi. So my guess would be he's probably slightly under market value, which would be what for Sam Walker, you reckon? What would be market value for Sam Walker?
If he went to the market, what do you reckon he'd get?
Yeah.
I reckon he'd get 700 or 800 grand.
So what do you think he's actually on at the Roosters then? 6?
Probably 100 grand less than that. Probably 6.
I reckon. I look at it and go, 1.2 to 1.3 over 2 years would be my guess. He got to stay with them with the promise that when the Kiri money stopped being paid, he'll get paid most of that.
I can't help thinking, and I could be wrong, I could be completely off the mark, but I can't help thinking that Sam Walker is biding his time to get back to Brisbane. I can't help but thinking that we're in the next couple of years, we're going to see Sam Walker north of the border again.
So
I just feel
Walker and Walsh combo when Reynolds moves on and that money becomes available.
Yeah, or you know what, it could even be at the Dolphins.
Love a good whisper. That's what this show is about.
I mean, when you think about it, Sullivan is a short-term solution. He's not a long-term dude.
I really like him. He's a good player.
I do too. I really do too. I think he's a good player. I think that Penrith squad made him look maybe slightly better than he is.
But if you're going to say that, and I know you're on the lines of that, but don't you want him playing amongst the best players to be the best player he can
totally.
when he joins a
totally.
team?
And you know what? I don't think he was out of place playing in that company at all. I just wonder if he can play that same kind of football without the same company. Yep. And that could be argued with anyone. You know, we often see journeymen playing above and beyond what you thought they could when they're surrounded with better players. But I would see that maybe someone like Sam Walker could be a 6-year prospect at the Broncos or the Dolphins. So, you know, he's somebody that you could probably build a team around. He's your Nathan Cleary style.
100%. The fascinating thing about the O'Sullivan, you mentioned if he'd been at a poorer side, he actually started off at the Chooks and played a couple of pretty good games there. If the mind is working, which is always a challenge in 2023, do did he get rid of to the Titans so that they could sign Kyle Flanagan? Was that the trade-off that the Roosters made? Because they got rid of Mitchell Pearce, who went to the what do you call it?
That's right.
Knights.
He went to the Knights. Yeah.
They signed Flanagan, and I have a feeling, and I'd have to check it, but I have a feeling that O'Sullivan was pretty much sacrificed up to the Titans because they'd brought in Flanagan.
Didn't he go to the Warriors?
I think he went to the Warriors after he was at the Titans.
After, right? Okay,
you could be Roosters, right. Titans, Warriors, Panthers.
You could be right, mate. Look, I feel for him because he's always been the second choice halfback, and he hasn't really been given too many opportunities to extend beyond that. But you know what? I think for at least the next 2 years, that Dolphins team is going to be his team, and the position will probably be his to lose now.
I'm prepared to say it's the best signing Wayne Bennett's made.
Yeah. Look, I personally didn't mind the Bromwich brothers either. As far as starting a club goes, I think they were pretty good signings, and also Kafusi. They're all getting a little long in the tooth, but yeah, Sullivan's probably. I'm excited to see how Sullivan goes actually up there.
Speaking of the Dolphins, they really need a fullback, Coxsmith. Do you think they could sign one?
Do you class Milf as a fullback?
Yeah, because he's played there a bit before. How many fullbacks do you reckon they've got with NRL experience on the roster now?
I think they've got 5. Am I right?
Yeah. So they got poor old Jermaine Asako, who was signed as the fullback of the future, as like one of the first signings. He'll be lucky if he makes the wing. They got Milford, who really could end up at fullback, because if O'Sullivan's at halfback and they give that Isaiah Katoa from Penrith, who played really well for Tonga, a gig in first grade, then the only place that Milford can play is fullback. They signed Cody Nicolson, again, a utility player who has played time at fullback. He'll probably end up in the hooking rotation. And then Hamiso Tabo Fidel signs from the Cowboys because he can't get a gig at fullback up there at North Queensland ahead of Drinkwater. And about 10 minutes later, Bennett goes, "Hey, Tessie New, come over and play for us." So they've got Asako, Milford, HTF, Nicarima, and New at fullback.
Entertain me here. Edric Lee signed with them, didn't he?
Yep, he'll be on
hasn't
one
he
wing.
Hasn't he played a little bit of fullback too?
No, he's centre or wing. I don't think he's fullback. But Branko Lee's the other centre, and they got Gildart. They got some depth to a degree up there at the Dolphins, but especially at fullback, where I don't even know Tessie New will be playing first grade. I don't think he's a better prospect at one than Tabo Fido. I think I'd be playing him at the start of the year there.
Yeah. Plenty of fullbacks up there, mate. I'm not all that happy with their best 17 that people keep sprouting. I think it's a very, for the most part, a second class backline.
Well, it's depth without
an
quality
aging
is the problem. They've got a lot of players
forward pack.
Yeah.
So I don't have great hopes for the Dolphins, mate. I don't think they'll be swimming too far or fast in.
Who's your fullback of that 5? Who would you play at fullback?
It'd have to be Hammer, I would have thought. Although the Hammer has played a bit of centre as well, and he's not a bad centre.
That's going to be the downfall for him. He'll end up
because he'll end up a little bit. Yeah. If you've got the choice to play, with all due respect, Branko Lee or Hammer in the centres, I'm guessing who I'm taking. And it's
Queensland Origin Series victor.
Sorry.
And that'd be one side of the field. It'd be Branko and Edric on one side. Queensland or Debra.
The cousins.
That's it.
They are cousins. Did you know that?
What do you do with Milford then? Because if O'Sullivan's your halfback and you're going to is Katoa just going to have to bide his time to start the year?
I think so. At beginning. I mean, the problem playing Milf at fullback is that you'll come up against teams that are smart and they'll just bomb him and they'll, he'll have no hope. He'll have zero hope. It'll be like he'll break out in hives thinking about it. Either him or Nicarima, and we've seen what Nicarima does at fullback.
Tessie New will be the other guy. Anyway.
I think Katoa is going to have to Katoa's going to have to wait for the first 6 rounds to see how MILF comes out of the blocks. And if he does all right, Katoa might have to bide his time for another year. He's only very young.
Yeah.
So we'll see.
Couple other signings around the comp since Christmas or around Christmas. Corey Allen, another Queensland fullback who won a series, has joined the Roosters. Smart business from Trent Robinson. Get a player who can play wing, centre, fullback.
I think Corey Allen was pretty underutilised and maybe a bit out of luck at the Bulldogs, because I think he was probably a player that should have done better. He was all right at Souths. When he came from Souths,
part of what I
okay.
think you mentioned earlier with O'Sullivan playing at Penrith, sometimes around the right players you can look the part, and then when you end up having to be the guy and you're not quite at that level, you sort of get exposed. Danny Levi is the big off-season signing for Canberra. Now got 4 hookers down there. Will he play first grade?
How many clubs has Danny Levi played for now? We've got Canberra,
Brisbane, Manly, Newcastle.
Hold on. Canberra, Brisbane,
Manly,
Newcastle, Warriors?
I don't think so. I think it's those 4. Let me just check it for you. On the old Rugby League project. Sorry.
I thought he played for the Warriors.
I don't think so.
I thought he had 5 jerseys.
Newcastle, Manly, Brisbane are the 3 teams he played first grade for.
Newcastle, Manly, Brisbane, now Canberra.
And Canberra is the one. He
okay.
He played overseas last year in Huddersfield.
Okay.
But he came through as the next Danny Badiris at the Knights.
Right. Because I mean, I've got to be honest with you, I'm fascinated and I love a 5 jersey player. I do like it. I do like a Harlequin style jersey.
Nice. Yeah. Fair. Another one that is in that category is Farmanu Brown. Gus has pretty much confirmed he's in the top 30, even though NRL.com still hasn't come to the party on that front. I like this. I like this addition. I think he's the kind of guy you just need around a squad that can fill in a few positions, and I think it's an upgrade on your Brandon Wakeham, your Bailey Biondioto, and a real threat to poor old Kyle Flanagan if things don't go well at halfback.
I don't know if Kyle will be losing much sleep over Brown playing half, but so who's he played for before? He's had Tigers, Sharks.
I think, are the 2. He was playing for North Sydney, so he was in the Rooster system before he swapped to the Tigers last year. So he's on the verge. It's that Harlequin jersey.
Yeah. We need some more 5 jersey players, mate.
I might have another one for you, and we're going to cover it in the next pod. We're going to do a deep dive into the Dragons, but Ben Murdoch-Masila is another one.
Okay.
Retreads. We will hold back because he's your big name signing at the Dragons, so I'll hold back that. I want to talk about one more move by a club, and that's the Knights. They got rid of Chris Randall, the hooker to the Titans for Greg Marzhew. Don't mind this from either side, really, although the Titans did pick up Sam Verrills, so there's not really a walk-up start for Randall at first grade. But Marzhew is one of those wingers that the numbers on the stats page look really good at the end of every match. And then you watch the game and you go, he's kind of that borderline first grade kind of player. He can do some okay things, but the numbers on the page look more impressive than the product for mine.
Yeah. Look, I again go into stats when you base everything off stats without watching the game. It's very difficult, isn't it? Because you think, he killed it. This guy he must have
21 runs, then 200 meters. What a player!
Yeah, and then you watch the replay, and you're trying to find where he is. Where is this bloke?
Or they're deliberately kicking to him because they know that that's the poor side of.
Maybe it's the weak side.
Of the Titans. So interesting to see if he and Dum Young are the wingers in round 1. There were 2 other signings for Newcastle. This is what I wanted to finish on in regards to the recruitment. They signed 2 Englishmen, Kai Pearce-Paul and Will Price, for 2024.
Yeah.
It's a bold move from Aaron O'Brien because it's pretty much saying to the Knights, well, you got to stick.
Did you just call him Aaron O'Brien?
Oh, is it Adam O'Brien? Aaron O'Brien? Aaron O'Brien was a cricket player for New South Wales.
It's Adam, mate.
AOV. But he's pretty much said to him, "You got to keep me around for another 12 months because I've just spent all our salary cap on 2 players you haven't seen play yet." It's a brilliant move from the Supercoach.
Yeah. Well, look, Newcastle, and they've never fascinated me before, except when the Johns brothers played there.
Yeah.
Newcastle are a team that fascinates me this year because there's a lot going on. There's a lot going on. One of the big ones that's going on for me is Ponga playing 6.
Yep.
This is a desperation move from Coach O'Brien.
Yep.
This is an all or nothing move. Ponga doesn't have a great tackling style. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Ponga has been known. Ponga has been known to have a little bit of a glass jaw when it comes to getting knocked out. Now he's going to be defending in the front line. But Adam O'Brien needs him there for his attacking prowess, which he has got. He'll be on the left side, so he'll be on the right side of the field. He'll be on the left side of attack, right side for the defensive team. I can't help but thinking that teams like, I'm not sure what side of the field the Bulldogs are going to play kick-out, but I can't help but thinking that when kick-out
he'll play left edge again.
Will he? Okay.
Yeah, because he'll play outside Burton. He'll play outside Burton.
When someone that's playing on the right side of the field sees Ponga, looks up and sees Ponga trying to tackle him, it's going to be really interesting. And I've got a really horrible feeling that Ponga's going to get a couple of head knocks again and be out for a while. And then that's going to open up the door for his mate Kurt Mann to come into the team and play 6. And I'm going to be bold. I'm going to be bold as brass here, mate, and say that Adam O'Brien's the first coach fired in 2023.
He's got these 2 superstar Englishmen coming out. Both
not going to save him.
Anyway,
not going to save him.
I think one's half. I think Will Price is a half, and I'm not sure what Kai Pearce-Paul is, but it's to look this far out signing players from overseas. It's just it seems like it's sort of like a way of ensuring that you're around. And to your point, I don't think moving Kalen Ponga to 6 is the best move, because if the whole argument is he's going to get the ball in his hands more, why can't he do that fullback? What's stopping him?
He certainly can just play in the line a little bit more. Yeah, I mean, how many times a game does Tedesco get his hands on the ball?
Correct.
He doesn't need to play 6.
Yeah,
play him through the middle.
It's a strange one. That's all the signings. Recruitment Whisperers 7's pretty much finished. I wanted to talk about one coaching move. Mick Ennis, mate, gun for hire. He's already jumped off the Parramatta gravy train. He's going to oversee pathways and development at the Sharks because he lives down there. I think it's just basically a convenience thing for him. So he's traded driving down the Hume Highway to Canberra to then driving to Kellyville, which I would admit I wouldn't really want to be driving from the Shire to Kellyville every day. So I get why he's moved on there. And now he's at the Sharkies. There is an upside here, and it's not got anything to do with Cronulla's pathway development. It means that every time Ennis commentates a Parramatta game, it might be listenable now because he's no longer invested in how great he's made that team. So there is an upside here, people. The only downside is that Cronulla games might be less exciting.
You just don't like him. You don't like him. You don't like him because of what he did years ago in Canberra when he did give him the Viking clap. That annoyed you.
I didn't like him.
It may have even made you.
You know why I didn't like him? Because New South Wales thought he was a better option than Robbie Farah for that level, and he was just not. He was.
And in my opinion, they were correct.
No, they weren't. They lost every game with every series with Ennis inside. So
Robbie Farah was never going to do any better, mate. He was over.
He did. We won a series with him at hooker. Who knew that happened? Stats. And finally, the new rules that came in. Sorry, Coxsmith, they're not new rules. I'm sorry. I have to take that back. I haven't been reading from the PR playbook.
Hold on.
The NRL did not.
New rules.
No. They're not new. They're not, mates. They're not. Stop using that word, because every club that had to post the same article from NRL.com were explicitly instructed: do not use the words new, or if you're going to say new, say that there's no new rules.
So is the key word is the key word rules or amendments that we're talking?
Amendments,
Okay.
changes to the guidelines and all that kind of stuff. We went through it before we
Right.
started the pod. People probably have heard most of them. There are a couple of good ones, and there's just an interesting way of interpreting a few others. The restriction or the reduction of the amount of HIAs you have to activate 80th man has come from 3 to 2. I like that.
Mhm.
What makes no sense to me is that we knew that after about 3 minutes of that rule that you needed to have it only be 2, and the NRL didn't change it on the fly, which they really should have. But that's changed. Now grounding the ball is going to be even more questionable, because they're now saying that if the ball somewhat stays near your arm to get grounded, it's okay. So I think we're going to see even worse time taken.
Yeah,
it's going to take longer for them to make a decision now.
I get your opinion on that, right? But I've got a different opinion, and that is, it's always been weird for me that a player must control the ball at all times while crossing the line and putting the ball down for it to be a try. When, if there's a kick in goal, all the player's got to do is touch it. He doesn't control it. How can you control a ball that's spinning on the ground? You can't. That, in my mind, mate, it should be a plain and simple rule, and it looks like that's the way that the NRL are going. Sorry, an amendment to the rule, which, as long as you don't drop the ball, as long as the ball does not separate from your arm or your body, it's a try. Whether you got control or not should be neither here nor there. I think as long as the arm, a part of the arm is still touching the ball and there's been no separation, try. Let's move on. The problem that we get with these video referee tries, or the ones that get really controversial, are the ones that take a long time.
That's my issue.
They need to make a decision, whether it be the right decision or the wrong decision. They need to make a decision in a very short amount of time and take all the heat out of the controversy. Because when they spend 2.5 minutes looking at it and still make the wrong decision, then that's
always my frustration. That's what worries me about this. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but what concerns me is that by saying, oh no, that all the ball has to do is stay in contact as opposed to being in control, does that create more doubt in the video referee's mind about what is actually being held onto and what isn't than what
I just think
heard last year?
I just think it makes it a little more cut and dried. Was there separation? Okay. No, try.
Okay.
And I think,
want to see him watching full speed.
Yeah, I know. I think they should have an internal clock that nobody gets to see, but I think that they should be trying to get these things done in about 20 seconds.
This is the hilarious part. They actually are operating that, because what they have to do at the end, they haven't done it for a while, actually. It's interesting, because it's taking longer. But they would come out at the start of every season and say, well, video referee decisions were on average 33 seconds. Like, that number is sitting over the top of every decision maker at the NRL. They want to get that down. That's the long and the short of it. So I'm sure that is internally they're very much aware of how long things take, but they no longer tell the world how long it is. The only other one which was of interest is there'll now be a penalty given rather than a 6 again for the blatant offside and leaving the scrum earlies from defending your own line, which should have happened the moment that started happening. This is where the NRL's got to show some flexibility and some authority. And what bugged me about it was, yes, that's the right decision. So now I think 2-point penalty goals are back in vogue. But why wouldn't Annesley? I've got a theory. Why do you think Annesley wouldn't tell everybody that sin bins are now in play if you keep doing it, given it's now a penalty?
I've no idea.
Oh, he's afraid of the coaches.
Thought about it.
He's afraid of the coaches. Because if they have an opportunity to drag him across the coals, they certainly will. So now, instead of getting on the front foot and saying, well, we know you've been doing this forever, which is what they're effectively saying by turning it into a penalty, just get out and say, well, if you keep doing it, we'll send you the bin. Tell them now. Don't tell them halfway through the season and say, oh, it's been happening a little bit too often. We really like players to stop. Yeah, please. Because go on, finish anyway,
off.
The last part of that is that in saying all that, they've now said that if you hold the ball in the scrum, you can get penalised. So we've basically admitted that we can tell whether you're holding the ball in deliberately, but we can't tell whether you're deliberately giving away a penalty in front of your post.
Yeah, but what happens in the first minute of a game? There's a scrum, and it's down on another team's line, and the attacking team's got the ball, the feed, and they hold the ball in the scrum to try and draw the team offside.
That's always been a ploy. They're saying that's now a penalty.
But that's always been a ploy.
Correct. They're saying that is now more enforceable than calling a penalty and sending someone to the sim-in, is basically what they've admitted. They have declared that they can now see into the mentality of the player holding the ball in the scrum better than whether a player deliberately races up and gives away a penalty, which is what they've been doing for the last 2 years. Anyway,
hopefully they clean it up. But the one that still sticks in my mind, and the one that annoys me every time we see a very, very close game, is the offsides from the play the ball in a golden point situation, or even a sudden death situation where you're coming down. The teams, it's 21-20 and there's 30 seconds to go, and the other team's trying to draw up even, and the defending team will just run offside at each play the ball every play, and the referee won't have the balls to blow a penalty. He just won't do it. He just puts the thing in his pocket, the whistle in his pocket, and won't blow it through fear of oh no, if I blow this penalty, I might give him 2 points and then they'll win.
And this is where I get back on Annesley's back. He's too afraid of the coaches coming back and saying we can't do that's how football's been played for years. And we keep getting told we need a more flowing game, is what the words they were using. Then you need to crack down on that. That's episode 276 and not the Footy Show, the Recruitment Whisperers wrap, I guess, of all the moves this offseason. Just as we finish, Coxsmith, are you expecting any other moves really before now and the start of the season in March?
I think there will be. I just wonder. I can't tell you who it's going to be, but I think there will be some little movements in and around. I don't think there'll be any big ones, though. I mean, unless you've got something that you've been sitting on for a while.
I think we've seen them. I think we've seen the big ones at the moment, and unless you count Michael Ennis to the Cronulla.
We won't talk about coaching manoeuvres yet. Let's get to round 6 and see how the.
We're talking about the Dragons in the next pod. We'll be talking about coaching straight away. So, does he even make round 1? Griffin's Biscuits. We shall see. That's been Robb Cox. I'm Warrick Nicolson. We will speak to you on episode 277, which will be our deep dive into the Dragons. We're not going to do every team, but we have to do the Dragons, don't we, Coxman?
Yeah, well, we've got to go for the cellar dwellers and the big movers and shakers, mate. So we'll see where the Dragons end up.
All right, take us out, mate.
Pepsi.
Not the Footy Show.
You've been sleeping over there?
Pepsi.